Welcome. In this video lecture, I am going to talk about the two concepts. One is utilization, another is implied utilization, which is also known as workload. So basically, utilization means how long a particular resource is busy to perform certain tasks. So that means utilization is indicating the busyness of the resource. So the answer of the utilization is always lie between 0 and 1. Okay, so that means if we have the answer of the utilization of any particular resource, we can also calculate the idleness of that particular resource. How we can do that? That is by using 1 minus utilization. So we will get the answer that the proportion of the time the particular resource is idle. So that means basically utilization help us to quantify the busyness of the resource, or with the help of utilization we can also calculate the idleness. So now the question is how we can calculate. So either you can calculate the utilization of resource with the help of flow rate divided by capacity, or either you can calculate another formula, that is time activated that particular resource divided by time available of that resource. So first of all, what the flow rate means, that is basically indicating the speed of the system. So flow rate or a throughput rate. So if you know that the flow rate is basically depend on the two things, whether the system is a demand constraint system or a capacity constraint system, because the flow rate is basically equal to the minimum from demand, okay, or a process capacity. So which means if the demand is less than the process capacity, the flow rate would be equal to demand, which means the system is a demand constrained system. If the process capacity is less than the demand, then the flow rate would be equal to the process capacity, and then the system is a capacity constrained system. So remember that if the system is a capacity constrained system, the resource having the smallest capacity, which means that is a bottleneck operation, then the utilization would be of that particular source would be equal to 1, which means that is 100% utilization. Of course, if the utilization is equal to 1, that particular source idleness would be equal to 1. But if the utilization of a particular resource is all the resources are less than 1, that is indicating the system is a demand constrained system. So basically utilization is also help us to identify, or you can say to see whether the workload is divided equally or balanced workload is divided to all the resources or not. Okay, but remember that never consider the utilization increase of the utilization of individual resources as a KPI. So you can consider the increase of the utilization, but average labor utilization. Okay, overall labor utilization increase should be our task, but the balancing it out, that would be the main component. Okay, but if we are going to talk about the implied utilization, so implied utilization or workload is help us to know whether the particular source would be able to meet the demand of the customer or not. So how we can calculate the implied utilization? That is basically the demand divided by the capacity of that particular resource. Okay. So which means if the answer of the implied utilization is equal to 1, okay, or we can say less than or equal to 1, then it means that particular source would be able to meet the demand. But if the answer is greater than 1, then the implied utilization is indicating that particular source wouldn't be able to meet the demand. So which means if the answer is more than 1, let's say 1.16. So this fraction we can use to quantify the overtime of that particular resource. So let's say if we are working 8 hour per shift, okay, 8 hour per shift. So, and this particular resource having the implied utilization 0.16. So that means 8 multiplied by zero point 0.6 would be the number of hours that particular source need to do the overtime in order to meet that particular demand. I hope you got the idea what is the utilization, what is the implied utilization, and how we can interpret the results. So thank you so much. See you in the next video.